Yes, and we will definitely wait a couple of more minutes for people to log in.
Join the party.
We can start.
It's like a lot of people joining. Good. If 5 is a lot.
5. Okay.
No, we are already 27 and getting.
Wow, it's cool.
Yeah.
Maybe I mean you can definitely hear us. Just put a couple of comments in the chat, guys, where you're from, which city, which country, just to say hello, that we see that you're alive.
Yeah, I see people from Berlin, definitely. South Africa.
Belgrade.
Oh, Belgrade.
Hey, cool. Hamburg, yeah.
Dresden. Hello to Saxon. Cologne. From Mexico.
Munich. Oh, that's cool. Awesome. Dubai. We're really international. Lisbon. Right. Copenhagen, of course.
Yep, Serbia, good. South Africa. There's a few familiar faces, or at least familiar names in the list already. So
yeah, it's good. Germany. Hi, Sasha.
Yeah, we still keep a couple of minutes waiting until a couple of more people sign in.
Yeah,
we're 36 now.
Definitely.
So we're at what I mentioned, like the 30% mark.
Yeah.
But it's almost 40. Yeah, so it's good.
So the Germans are here now. Comes the others.
Yeah.
Let's keep waiting. Maybe a minute more.
Just to crack the 40 attendees, right?
Yeah, we have to.
Yeah.
And we just get going. So if you just join up and just say where you're coming from, and maybe for those who have already said where you come from, what's your favorite drink? Just to get a little bit fun stuff, and maybe mentioning your business. What is the business? Yeah, beer. Love it.
Nick, yeah, definitely Bavarian beer. Yeah, mine as well.
Yeah, very good.
Now look, we cracked 40. Well, hey.
Yeah, it's 40. Very nice German beer. Yeah, I mean, German beers are nice. That's why I live in Germany.
Why you only see your own message? I have no idea. I guess
we can all see yours, Julian. No worries.
Hi, Hendrik.
Julian, it's because you're writing to the panelists instead of to everyone. And probably that's an auto function that somebody set up without being aware of it.
True.
It's the first fuck up of the night.
Yeah.
Yeah, good. We will have more than this for sure.
Let me change that. Now you can see it, maybe. I hope. I have no idea. So shall we get going? I think there will be still people showing up. There you go. See, you can see it.
5 people. That's great, actually.
Seeing Joshua joining. Hey, we just did a podcast today. It's good. Shall we get going? Let me try to share my screen at least, if that works. Before it fucks up again.
No, that works.
Good. It's maybe a bit big. Awesome. Can't see the chat, so it will be good to see the chat. No, doesn't work like this.
Hey, Mika.
Yeah, that's better. Yes, great. Yeah, welcome everyone. It's the first kind of prototype of the Entrepreneurs Fuck Up Night, and it's really cool that so many people are joining and looking into whatever comes up today. We have no idea how this will work out. Just maybe give you a little bit of background where we come from, how we came up with that idea. So Jan and I met a couple of years back when we both lived in Russia and worked in Russia as expats. And we kind of stayed connected the whole time, mainly focused on sport topics, but now as well more on business topics. And I moved back to Germany last summer, and we connected back, and then we said, hey, let's do something together. And I have no idea how we exactly came up with the Fuck Up Night, but it was one of the many topics we said we could be doing. And we just said, let's do a prototype and just announce it. and that's basically 4 or 6 weeks ago, and here we are, and basically starting the first fuck up night for us. It's really cool that so many people are joining. Happy to see so many people and messages already. Maybe to give you a little bit of understanding who I am. My name is Jens Heidland. I'm German, grown up in Germany. Started my career when I was 16 working on construction sites, and developed myself going forward to end up being global head of innovation for one of the let's say for one of the big Swedish furniture brands out there. All that just to start all over again and build my own businesses, and that's 2 years ago. So I'm now having 5 businesses with different topics, having a lot of fun and learning every day, doing prototyping. I'm a lot into innovation, as you can see from my t-shirt, helping companies to innovate in different ways, mainly focusing on the leadership of the companies, like executive teams and so on. Couple of other more fun stuff, but that's not so much interesting for you guys today. Yeah, that's basically everything from my side. Handing over to Jan.
Yeah, thank you, Jens, and hi everyone. Welcome to our Entrepreneurs Fuck Up Night. I am Jan, and I am a digital transformation enthusiast. I'm about to establish my own company, and also I work as a business development manager at Netology Software, is a vendor of low-code business process management tool where we help small and medium businesses to digitalize their business-specific processes. Exactly on the same topic, I host the Digital Mittelstand podcast. Mittelstand is a German word for small and medium businesses. And my aim is to help Mittelstand to overcome their digital transformation challenges. I am from Turkey, but I live in Berlin, which is almost Turkey anyways. But before moving to Berlin, I lived in Russia for 4 years, where we met with Jens. We have quite a lot of things in common. We are both coming from construction. I worked 10 years in constructions. And besides all of that, I'm a triathlete racing in half Ironman distances. Jens is a triathlete as well. Right now, I will tell you a little bit about our agenda. So our first speaker will be Dan, and the topic of his speech will be taking the hits, and then we will hand it over to Claus. I just leave the title of Klaus's speech to Claus. Then we will ask one of you guys to voluntarily tell your fuck up story, and if anyone is interested sharing their failure stories with us today, please reach us through the chat. And of course, as we have 2 experienced entrepreneurs here, we will run a quick Q&A session. Before I hand it over to Dan, just wanted to say that Dan's story is by default very interesting, because he's coming from New Zealand, yes, the other side of the world, and he established a very successful company in Munich, Germany. So I am as excited as you, and right now, Dan, the stage is yours, mate.
Thank you very much, guys. It's a pleasure to be here, and I hope I can tell some entertaining stories. So just quickly before I go into the fuck-ups, a couple of words about myself. So I'm from New Zealand originally. The reason the title of my story is Taking the Hits is back in New Zealand, I used to be a competitive kickboxer. And, you know, I couldn't help but draw the comparisons between my life as a kickboxer and my life as a entrepreneur. Because frankly, it seems like every day I wake up, I'm just taking the hits all day long, you know, and it's not about so much how many hits you can take. It's more about how many hits you can give, but more or less how many hits you can take. That's largely related to the success as an entrepreneur. So my first fuck up story basically starts actually well before I started my company. It was started when I came over to the UK in 2004. I left New Zealand. I had 3 degrees, including a computer science degree. And I came over and I joined a consultancy that was focused on testing. And a friend of mine turned around to me and said, Dan, if you start working in this as a tester and in this consultancy, you will always be a tester. And testing at this time was the forgotten child of IT. No one wanted to do testing because it sucked. You know, the tools weren't good enough. There was really a bad stigma associated with testing. And, you know, I took this, the person that said this was one of my mentors and friends of mine, you know, and I took his words to heart. And frankly, he was right. Here I am 17 years later, and I'm still in the testing industry, you know. And the message there was, it was not about making the right decision, but making the decision right, you know. So I took ownership of that one, and I call that a kind of fuck up, but that started my whole story, as it were. So we fast forward through some years. I also did some consulting throughout Europe and so forth. And then I had my first big project at a major automotive industry here in Munich. I'll let you guys figure that one out. It was a pretty cool project. It was there was around 200 people running Scrum of Scrums. And it was the largest agile project at the time. So the largest digital transformation project that was going on in Europe at the time. Super exciting to be part of, you know. They had 18 Scrum teams. It was, you know, it was a world of possibilities. So they brought me in. They asked me to do a modern agile testing concept. I thought, awesome. This gives me the opportunity to bring together the automation, the agile development, all of this kind of stuff. So I spent 3 months working my ass off to try and put together a concept and a handbook and all the stuff that they needed to move forward with confidence. So in the middle of my presentation, where I'm proudly talking about automation and integration and, you know, slick modern software development techniques and so forth, they raise their hand and say, stop, Dan, we don't see the need for test automation in this project. I've never been in a situation where I've so totally missed the mark, right? This was clearly a need for that project, clearly a need on this project. There was no coherency, there was no underlining strategies. And they tell me, no, just straight out, flat out, no. I mean, it was like there was a microphone, you know, there was a pin, you could have heard a pin drop in the room, you know? So I left that room completely devastated, but utterly convinced that I was right. So that was basically the inception moment for my company, Testify, which we ended up setting up later on. So fast forward a little bit, I came back to this large automotive company and I met my business partner. We set up our company in 2017. In 2019, we went from going part-time as a side business to working full-time in Testify. So up until that point, we were freelancing via our company, via Testify. And then we started working full-time in 2019. So here comes, well, this is not really a fuck-up story. This is more or less just an observation. And this is my second quote for the night. Wisdom largely comes from experience, and experience largely comes from a lack of wisdom. So as we were growing the company, we have these different phases of growth. And the first phase of the company is the founder phase, right? And that's where you've got the founders and everybody's working their ass off, you know? So in our case, there was just the two of us, right? So my partner and I. The second phase after the founder phase is the get whoever you can get phase. This is where you've got like, all of a sudden you're like, we can make a business out of this. Let's see what we can do. But we at least were bootstrapping and bootstrapping hard. And so we're like, okay, well, we've just got to take who we can get, right? And this is a bit of a luck of the draw, you know? And the next phase after the get whoever you can get phase is like, this is starting to get serious. It's now time to get some adults in the room phase. And then the phase after this is okay, now it's time to get serious. Let's start getting more professional. Now, the point that I'm trying to get to is that as we go through those different phases, the requirements on the team change, and not everyone survives that transition. Now, in the initial phases, you feel a lot of loyalty to the initial, the early starters, you know, the people that you're working together with, right? Because there's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears going on, you know? And sometimes, actually, those people don't make that transition from the first phase to the next phase, you know? And so my big fuck up was as we transitioned from the first phase, the founder phase, to the more senior phases, I very nearly lost my founder, my partner, you know, because we had a miscommunication, the roles changed, but we weren't able to adapt the roles properly. and it was super hard. And through the whole, you know, we were moving the company forward, and instead of focusing on growing the company, we're instead have this friction and this conflict that's going on, you know. As if that's not bad enough, we managed to get through that in the end. So, but that's not the point. The point of the story is that this as you're going through these different phases, you've got to be realistic about what's going on. One of the guys, our very first employee, as soon as we got some of the adults in the room, we had a big conflict clash, you know, and we had this culture clash. And actually there was an incident that occurred, and it resulted in escalation, which I couldn't understand. And it had nothing to do with who was right or wrong, and everything to do with this power and so forth. So that happened. And my first employee basically stepped out of the room. You know, he left the company, but he stayed in the company for at least another 3 or 4 months, right? And if I look back in retrospect, he was in that company for 4 months too long. He caused a huge amount of friction. When he eventually left, he had access to my entire system. So we lost databases, we had abusive messages being sent through, you know. Basically, there was just a massive shitstorm, you know. It massively undermined the team development, and we had to redo our entire infrastructure stack in AVS. Sorry, Jens, you have to give me a heads up when I'm running out of time, you know. It was super stressful to go through. And the message that I learned, obviously, there was that actually, I knew that I should have got rid of this guy a long time ago, a long time before that escalation point, and I should have really taken action and got rid of him much earlier. And we again had a similar situation relatively recently. And, you know, frankly, it was clear to me that I should have taken action earlier, but I didn't. And it still hurts to go through this. And every single time, you know, you're reliving this pain and so forth. But in the end, it's obviously, it makes sense to do this earlier and to be decisive and make sure that it's fair on both parties. All right, how much more time do I have, Jens? Just quickly, I've got maybe one more story. Yep, okay. So the next thing was then, as we started going full time, it was a long, hard winter, right? We had to do everything we could to get through, you know, to get the company up and running. So long hours, stress, pressure. We were dealing with an immature product. There was lots of massaging around corners. The first project that you get, you're always kind of grateful for. But in the end, you almost certainly become a low-paid consultant, right? You're bending over backwards to meet the needs of the customer. And this was very much the case, you know, so you have to learn how to set those boundaries. We were working, you know, day and night for a protracted period. And then suddenly, from one day to the next, I lost all the hearing in my ear. You know, my left ear became deaf completely. And thankfully it came back, right? It was a middle ear infection, which is almost certainly psychosomatic, but I've never had that before. I never before understood how people could get burnout, right? And it was all about setting these boundaries, right? And the message there, of course, was that, you know, setting up a company and growing a company, which we now have 30 people in the company. So it's, I mean, it's successful to a degree. We're not really where we want to be. We've obviously got a lot of hard work to go, but it's a marathon and not a sprint, right? And you've got to make sure that you're reflecting on this as we go through. So this was definitely, let's say, the message or the learnings that I've had from those brief fuck-ups. So I think my time's up now, right, Jens? So I've now got to hand over to the mystery that is Claus. So with that,
I will take from you. Thank you very much, Dan. And we will take all your questions going forward. If you have questions to Dan, please put hashtag Dan before it. You can already post them. We try to go back to them. Now we will be moving to Claus, and Claus and I met way back. A couple of years back, Claus and I worked together on an interesting project when I was still working in the corporation, and we got to know each other in a nice way, and that's why I thought it's Claus is an interesting personality, an interesting person to get into this fuck up night as well. So please welcome Claus.
So hello there, I'm Claus. I'm the director of the College of Extraordinary Experiences. I work as a coach at McKinsey & Company. I'm one of the founders of the Global Institute for Thought Leadership and an author of 31 books. Now, right now, and I'm also telling you there's something about keynotes, I'm telling you all this shameless bragging for one single purpose. So you don't think I'm a complete idiot after you've heard the story. Maybe, if I'm lucky. Let's go back to 2007, when I was a little bit younger, a little bit thinner, and I'm not saying I was wiser then, but I don't think I'm that much wiser now. So it kind of evens out. I had a live action role play company, and what that looked like, well, sometimes it looked like this. Other times, it looked like this. Now, there were a lot of swords involved, latex swords. Why that's important? We'll get back to that. So our story begins on a Tuesday evening. It's 9 o'clock in the evening. And for you Americans out there, this is 9 p.m. I check my mail. This is before smartphones, that sort of thing. And this is where you had to actively check your mail. So I check my mail. There's a new mail from somebody. I don't recognize the sender. And it says, and I quote, "Hi, me and 80 kids are really looking forward to tomorrow. See you at 9. And that's not 9 p.m. That's 9 a.m. There's no phone number. Let's unpack that for a moment. Tomorrow, 9 a.m., 80 kids. That's it. So what do I do now? I write back. I say, "See you tomorrow." And then I call Peter. I say, "Peter, I want you to meet me at the airport at 6:30. I call Jakob and I say, "Jakob, I want you to meet me at the storage at 8 o'clock. And then I sleep. So we jump to the next day. The next day at 6:30, I meet Peter at the airport. Why the airport? Because at Copenhagen Airport, I'm Danish and I lived in Copenhagen at the time. At Copenhagen Airport, you could rent cars at 6:30. In the rest of the city, you have to rent them from 8 o'clock and onwards. And I realized we couldn't make that. But at the airport, you could rent them at 6:30 if you pay an extra 40 euros or so to rent the car. I don't have a driver's license. And Peter and I, we meet up and we rent a car because I didn't own a car either. Then we went to the storage, which should say here. There we meet Jakob, and then we pack 80 swords, we pack 80 uniforms, we pack a few extra just in case, and we pack a Minotaur, something like this, a monster suit, something that looks nice and flashy for any sort of event. We don't really know what we're getting into, but a Minotaur is always handy. Now we also pack a few random costumes. In this case, customes, but it just shows that spelling is not always my strong suit. It's now 8:30. Then we drive. You might think, where do we drive from? This is where we are. This is a map of Copenhagen. We drive to a place a little bit northwest of where we are. And you might think, why the hell do we drive there? You still don't know where you're going, right? You don't know where the customers, you don't know where those 80 kids are, which is correct. But here, there's a sweet spot between a couple of highways where there's a cross highway that runs. And if you are there, then you have the biggest action radius when you find out where you're going. So it's 9 o'clock now. We're in position and we wait. 5 minutes later, the phone rings. "Hello, where are you? Oh, I'm so sorry. I think we took a wrong turn. Oh, was it at the Slango Force? Yes, I'm sure it was. Oh, can you give me the precise address just so we don't fuck it up again? Oh, yes, here it is. See you soon." It's 9:07. I call my sister. This is before smartphones. None of that stuff. Today, I would have just Google mapped it. Today, then not so much. So I call her, she's at home. She gets the address from me. She reads me a route plan on the phone. I note it down and I give it to our driver. It's now 10 minutes past 9. We get going. I call back the client and say, "Oh, we'll be there in 15 minutes. Sorry, very unprofessional." It's now 9:25 and we arrive because we've been in luck. This turns out this place was actually within striking distance of where we were. It could have been in the other end of the country. It could have been the precise opposite direction. Luck has had it that we've arrived at the right place, or at least that we were in the right position, roughly. There are adults and their kids, and the adults are annoyed. Of course they are. We're 25 minutes late. We can still save the day. Then we start rounding up the kids. We start dividing them into teams, and Peter looks panicked. He says, "Klaus, there's more than 80 kids. I said, "Don't worry." He said, "You can't just conjure up swords. We need swords for the kids." I said, "Exactly." I said, trust me on this one. It's going to be fine." Peter's not happy. We divide the kids into 4 teams. 3 of them get uniforms. Now, we plan on giving all of them uniforms, right? This is what a uniform looks like. It's very simple. It's made of cloth, and you can bundle it because it's simple. You can make it into a rough ball and tie it off. Now, then we gather all the kids. 3 of the teams are in uniform. 1 of them is the team without uniform. None of them have swords yet. And Peter's thinking, what's he going to do now? So I show the crowd a crumpled ball. And I say, it's a magic ball of death. If you're hit by one, you're dead. Needless to say, if you're hit by one of the latex swords, you're dead as well. But we didn't have to go into that right then and there. So each team has only 5 magicians. Now, who wants to be a magician? Storm of hands go up. Forest of hands even. And suddenly the 80 swords are enough. We hand out the costumes. We do the thing. The rest of the day passes without incident. The woman who hired us thanks us at the end of the day. And she says, I have to admit, I had some doubts when you showed up late, but we've had an amazing day. And this is the kicker. It's really nice to work with professionals. As we drive home, Peter is still in shock. And me, I promise myself never to tell that story. Thank you.
Awesome, Klaus. Thank you very much. There's no applause here in this. So what guys, what you're thinking? You can use the chat function. And we can start shooting questions. We got a couple of questions already for Dan. If you have questions to Klaus, please put hashtag Klaus in front, then we can find it. Klaus, by the way, I love your jacket. I need one like that as well.
That was the reason, by the way, that I had to go first, right? Because there's no way I could follow that.
So shall we start with questions to Dan? I found one. So Dan, how did you go about increasing the maturity of the product?
Yeah, it was basically an MVP style approach, right? So lean product development. We focused on iterating around our basic framework, and whatever the framework couldn't do, we supplemented it with just basically massaging the tool forward, right? So consultancy services and so forth, and yeah, faking it until we made it, basically. So
yeah. And then another one for Dan. How much time did it take for the ear to be back to normal, and how did you attend the meeting during that time?
I took about a week off, which was the first time I'd taken a week off since we started the company, and it took about a week for the ear to get back to normal. But it was purely a psychosomatic thing, right? So I'm happy to say it returned to normal eventually. So
just checking, there are a couple of comments, but not really questions. Any more questions to Dan?
And yes, this large automotive company is in fact our customer, indeed.
and you can guess which company is it. I think
you guys are all smart enough to figure that one out, right?
No idea. Okay.
Then let's move to Klaus. We have only one as far I can find. Klaus, how do you get a green screen on Zoom?
But that's beautiful, because that shows what actually matters today. I tell this painful story about being so unprofessional that I don't know what I've promised a client, and I don't know what deals I've made, and I haven't even entered an actual job in my calendar. And the important thing is my green screen. Well, I'll show you. So this trick is done because there's an actual green screen hanging there. I'm just going to switch camera so we can get that done. And then Jens, you can say some more stuff. But here, where do we have it? Here's the thing I have. Da-da. And here's a green screen. It's here, and here's my camera, which is my phone, filming it. And then I use some software called It's actually called that.
And Klaus has a YouTube video where he goes into all details explaining that.
One more question to Klaus. Where is the fuck up, Klaus?
Well, the one, as I just I answered in the chat as well, and thanks for asking, Felix. I think not knowing what you've booked yourself out to when you're an entrepreneur, It's a pretty big fuck up. In this case, it managed to be saved by a combination of luck and daring and planning and playing the odds. But today, when somebody says, see you tomorrow, I will normally know what they're talking about. Then I had no clue. This wasn't just a lady who'd marched out 80 kids in the woods without telling me. This was me who had fucked up completely and hadn't entered a client agreement into my calendar. That's not really the way to do it.
It worked out.
Luckily.
There's another quote that springs to mind from Winston Churchill, which is success is mostly blindly running from failure to failure with an unending optimism and positive enthusiasm. And I couldn't help but also say, you know, I mean, this is the story of almost every entrepreneur that I know of, that's for sure.
Yeah, we all have that in common. One more question for Klaus. How is your LRP business going nowadays? Sorry, I don't know what is that, but you got it.
So if we're talking about bigger fuck ups, then that crashed and burned 2 years ago. We had a company where I had 50 people when we were at our highest, and 2 big dreams and 2 little reality, and it crashed and burned and left me with almost €1 million of personal debt that I'm now working to get rid of, or let's just say earn back so I can pay back people. So if you want the really big stuff, then I landed myself in almost €1 million of personal debt 2 years ago when that company crashed.
Which if you are into entrepreneurship, you shouldn't do.
No, don't do that. Do a limited liability company. Please do that.
Yes,
for my sake.
Definitely.
So the lesson from today is go for a limited liability company.
Yes.
So that's the way.
Because there is a tomorrow.
Can we hear more about that fuck up?
Shit, we definitely can, but I think that's going to be a long night.
we can do that in the next version. So maybe before we go into opening up the mic to the possibility, if any one of you guys want to share a fuck up story, please post in the comments. And in case you like this format, we have already chosen to do another one. So we're planning to do another fuck up night as another test in 4 weeks from now. So I just posted the Zoom link so you can early sign up for the next version of it. Any one of you interested in presenting yourself, presenting your fuck up? Nobody. Come on, guys.
Maybe in the next one.
If you're not entrepreneur, that's fine. You can share as well if you're not an entrepreneur. David, do you want to share your story? Or Felix, if you want to share a fuck up that's not completely fucked up yet. Vladislav want to do in a couple of years.
Okay, we will be hosting you in a couple of years when you have a fuck up story to tell. Definitely.
While people are gathering their courage, I just want to share that the first time I did one of these fuck up nights was about 10 years ago, and I've since used it as a teaching tool in innovation, especially to teach fail culture, for example, to police officers. So it's not only fun, it's also a useful training tool and teaching tool when you're wanting to change company culture. So thanks for doing this, guys, and raising the awareness.
So I think it's an interesting point, generally speaking, when you talk about failure, you know, so failure often has a negative association attached with it, obvious reasons, right? And especially in Germany, where there's this strong red line that everybody wants to see going through their profile, you know. Now, I'm not saying that Germany's the only country like that, but it's especially strong here in Germany, you know, this don't fail, this don't fuck up culture. But the reality is, you know, as an entrepreneur, we're making this shit up as we go, basically. You know, every day is like a challenge or a problem that you've never had before, right? And, you know, some of the things fall back to patterns that you feel familiar with. Most of the time, it's not the case, right? So you're just making this stuff up as you go. And sometimes it works, and sometimes you just learn, right? You know, and that's the attitude that you've got to take. So another quote that I really like is that when it comes to failure is only a problem if you stop. Because if you stop, then your entire exercise up until that point is tainted by the end point, by the failure. But if you just keep on going, it's just another lesson, right? And you've learned something more, and you try and avoid doing it the next time. But and this is then the Silicon Valley, you know, the entrepreneurial mindset that's so characteristic of all these kind of, you know, the American style of doing things, right? Where there's much more of a forgiving attitude towards failure. But in the end, most of the time, if you make a fuck up, it's a cheap lesson, because if you make it earlier, then it becomes, well, hopefully before it becomes too expensive, you know. And the reality is, Claus, even though you lost €1 million and you're, you know, personally liable for it, the next time when you've got 10 million on the road, you know, it's 10 million on the line, right? It's a different story, right? And
it's going to be a good book when I'm out of that debt.
Yeah.
Oh, there's a big post from Julia. One of my fuck ups. Shall we read that? Or Julia, do you want to tell us more about that?
I'm not sure if she's able to present. She might have to.
I can bring her on if she is up to.
Yeah.
That at least what I allowed to talk is shown up here. I can. Good.
That would be great.
Rock and roll.
Let's try to find her. Okay, how does it work? It's in alphabetic order. If you can. Okay, we have more Julia's allowed to talk. There she is.
Yep.
Hey,
yes,
Julia.
hello.
Hello, welcome. Great that you take the challenge.
Yeah, thank you, Julia.
Yeah, actually, my fuck up is not entrepreneurship related, but I was once invited to an interview for an internship. And while I got the call that I was actually invited to the interview, I was drunk because I was living in Cologne during that time, and it was carnival season. So like you're basically drinking the whole day. And yeah, so I got the call and I was already drunk. So I forgot that I actually had the call, and I also forgot at what time the interview was supposed to take place. So the next morning I woke up and I saw, oh shit, I got a call from Stuttgart. Like, who could have that been? And then I was thinking about it. I was like, wait a minute, I think I called with that company. And then I was looking into the emails that I received from them before. And I saw that it must have been that one woman that I was texting with before via email, that she was the one calling me. So I sent her an email again, and I was asking her if she could confirm that interview one more time via email, just so I would have it in my email box as well. So it turned out okay for me. I actually got accepted to that internship eventually, but yeah, I thought it was pretty close to Klaus's story.
Love it.
Yeah.
That's a great one.
Thank you for sharing.
Thank you very much.
Welcome.
Anyone else willing to share something? It's not that hard. Julia, just make the jump. Anyone else? Come on, guys. Any more questions to Julia or to any one of the others? Let's do it. Wait. Joshua, do you want to jump on? Well, hey, yes. Okay, Joshua is. Let me find Joshua.
Sure, Joshua. And Nick said we also had some early meetings while coming from a late night. I would assume that some alcohol consumption were there as well, if I may. So the new company rule is no meetings before 10. Actually, it's a great learning example. So you learn from your mistakes and you adopt new rules to avoid those mistakes. So thank you, Nick, for this little story.
Let's move to Joshua. Hello, Joshua, welcome.
Hey guys, thanks for putting this together.
It's a pleasure.
Cool.
What's your fuck up story?
So I'm going to just take a slightly different stance on this and say there's a fuck up in this story by not doing something. And I'm going to use the example of where I resigned from my corporate job and decided to become an entrepreneur, and talk about how sometimes in life when we think about risks and mistakes and things, we often think about the bad outcomes. And we don't do that because we think about the bad outcomes, but we don't actually think about the possibilities that are associated with those things. And I think, Dan, it goes to something that you mentioned around figuring things out. And so that's my story in terms of how I was shit scared when I had to go to my manager and say to him, hey, Tristan, this isn't right for me. It's time for me to take a personal leap. And here I am today, an entrepreneur and things like that. So I just wanted to share that because I think sometimes when you think about risks and mistakes and things, we always think about the bad from it, but we don't actually think about the opportunities that can come from it.
Yeah, I love that.
I think that's an awesome point. And I'd just like to follow up by saying, often when you get faced with this kind of decision, it seems like a huge step, right? To make the step to go away from doing whatever you're doing something that's safe and doing something that's risky with the uncertain future and so on and so forth. But, my experience has always been, when it's the right time to do this thing. And actually, in retrospect, the step is not as big a step as you might think it is, It always seems like a big deal, but after you've made the step, you're like, well, actually, I was ready for this, And this is, I think, a super important thing that, it's really about this mindset and this belief that you can do it, right? And that makes a huge difference. And Joshua, your point is exactly the case, right? And also, same thing for me, it was a big deal. It took me 17 years after I started my career before I finally became an entrepreneur. But in retrospect, I was ready for this for years beforehand, and it wasn't such a big deal to make that step.
Yeah, maybe just to build off that, Dan, is something just quickly from sort of the company that I was working for at the time was an asset, or one of the arms of it was an asset manager. And when you talk about asset management returns, people look at upside and then they say, how do you get that upside? And when you approach risk, you often need to say, what is the risk in not taking a risk? Yeah. Because at the same time, if you don't take that risk, you'll never know, and you may potentially never have that upside.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I can just fill in from my experience. I mean, I have been in the global management team for one of the biggest companies in Europe, and quit my job and start all over again, which is like everyone around me said, you're nuts starting your own business and doing that. But I think yes, I've spent a lot of money. I most probably have lost a lot of money doing that, but I have gained so much value for me, for my family, and for my friends, which is 10 times worth it. Money doesn't matter for me on these topics. It's like the learnings you have, as long as you can live a fairly normal life, I'm super happy. There was another person, Sunny, wanted to talk. Let's find Sunny.
Well, thank you, Joshua, for your story as well.
True. And Joshua, just to follow up again as well, is that, this opportunity, because sorry, I just have to follow up, right? I fucking love what I'm doing, my days are filled with stress and filled with anxiety, and, I'm constantly thinking about the cash flow and, balancing the growth of the company with just all the other shit that's going on, right? And it's a lot of stress. And I translate a lot of that stress to the people around me, especially my wife and my family, it's hard work, right? And you've got to make boundaries and all that kind of stuff. And maybe it's not for everyone, but fuck, I love what I'm doing, man. I will never, ever be not an entrepreneur, because it's awesome being in control of your destiny, right? And having the opportunity to shape the game and change the game and just redefine shit on a daily basis, and I love it. I totally love it.
Yeah, thank you for these very sincere insights. And I think this is very inspiring for people who are writing in the chat that they would like to start their companies, or they are in the beginning phase of the startings, or entrepreneurs to bees or newbies. So I think it's very inspiring. Even for me, it's inspiring as well. So thank you for that sincere insight. So I think, Jens, we have one more story.
Yeah.
Yes. Hi. Let's go. Hey, Sunny.
So basically, I'm not an entrepreneur, but I'm actually looking for a job. But here's the thing about language here. So for example, I'm from Hong Kong, and when I'm looking at the job description, I say, English would be great. So I got past the first interview all in English, and then the second one, and the third one, when I'm facing CEO and then president, auf Deutsch kannst du, I was like, wait, what? German right now? And it's So I have no I can speak German, but I have no preparation for that. So that's a big fucked up, and that makes me like I think someone messed up the description. So yeah, they didn't wrote that you have to do German on it. So that's how it was.
Welcome in
Language.
Germany.
Yeah. Well, welcome to Bavaria. It's even worse in Bavaria because they don't even speak German, right? They speak Bayerisch. In Munich, sorry, they speak Bayerisch, right? So.
Yeah. I was just talking today with a couple of young entrepreneurs and was saying, explaining them how I selected people when I was working in a management position, and they have been really freaked out that I even didn't look at CVs, because I said I don't care about the CV because everything is anyhow made up. So let's meet with the person and get to know the person, and by meeting the person you will understand if they fit or if they don't fit. And I've never looked into CVs and specifically not education. But now being back in Germany since half year, after 7 years being outside of Germany, it's quite funny when you talk with management teams in larger corporations, it's all about the CV. Like even me as an external, they ask me, so where did you study? What did you do? And I say, hey, that's 20 years ago. Who cares about where I studied? So it's hilarious to see that, and sorry to hear it from you, Sunny, that you had the situation as well.
You're very right about the CV thing. Totally.
Yeah.
We all make it up.
Yeah, but if you need any help with a job, reach out to me on LinkedIn. Happy to support you.
Oh, thank you very much.
And Sunny, don't forget, Übung macht den Meister, so you can practice your German.
Natürlich, aber
German,
ich war nicht vorbereitet, muss ich sagen. Also plötzlich auf Deutsch, ne? Also, thank you very much, guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Sunny.
Thanks, Sunny. Anyone else willing to share?
Yes, I think Vladislav said he's not ready to share it today, but in another future episode he will. So Vladislav, that's your promise to us that you will attend all of our events and share your story one day. Okay?
Yes.
I'll hold him to that promise. I've got a very close relationship with Vladislav, so I'll make sure he follows through on this.
Okay.
That's a good one.
Thank you. It's great.
Now I've got to tell another story about, well, my opinion on the whole red line through the CV is it's total bullshit as well. So, you know, the modern world is changing so much. You know, we look at the job profiles that are, you know, the kind of skill sets that we need to succeed, you know. Most of the jobs or the interesting jobs didn't exist 10 years ago, right? Or 15 years ago, you know? So how can you possibly have a red line through your CV, you know? I was involved in a startup and they were doing interviews, and the guy insisted on asking how that person performed in high school maths. And I'm like, you know, how does that make any difference whatsoever, right? And but he was convinced that this was the right way to go right back before you start layering on all of this bullshit and pretense and everything like this, but to really find the truth if this person was capable or not. And again, you know, the world that the VUCA word that we live in, you know, all of this kind of you can't. I mean, it gives you an indication of what you can expect from somebody, but you can't predict the future performance based on these past anymore. It's a different story.
Yeah, that's against the nature of entrepreneurship anyways.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that's it's more important that you're capable and willing to think different and try different things rather than stick to the same thing your whole life. That has worked 20 years. And I mean, it's not bad doing that. I think there will be people out there who love that, like staying in the same role like forever. Like talking to my brother, he just had his 25 years anniversary in his business, and he's 42. It's the first job he started, and he's still in that job, and he loves it. Doesn't work with me.
No.
Yeah.
Never ever. I would be dying after 2 years, latest.
No.
So anyone willing to jump on or has more questions? If not, we will finish early. That's also fine. And I've earlier a beer.
I've got a question not for us, but for all of our lovely listeners. why isn't the chat full of questions? Not so much for me, I'm kind of a weird guy, but for Jan and for Dan and for Jens. I mean, the cost of it is practically nothing. The worst thing that can happen is nobody notices the question or doesn't answer it, or the answer is worth nothing. What's there to lose?
So Max want to join. Max, if you raise your hand, then I can pick up quickly.
So just to answer Brian's point then, when is there a point that you should throw the towel in, right? This is a deeply personal question, right? The question is not if you can throw a punch, but how you can take the punch, right? So the question is, what's your limit? And in some cases, that limit might be low. In some cases, that limit might be overstepped when you've got to put some of your own cash, or put your own I mean, for a lot of people, putting 1 million, having 1 million of liability for a step, that's probably a step too far for a lot of people, right? The answer is it just depends on what's your tolerance for uncertainty, and in the end, as long as you've got a North Star, as long as you can see clearly where you're going, and in my opinion, as long as you're making progress in that direction and you can feel like there's positive progress in making and going forward, then it's not the right point, right? But the point is, I mean, maybe you run out of options. I don't know. The question is, how do you handle the volatility, right? How do you adapt? And if you can't adapt, or if you're continually getting knocked back, then obviously there's a point you should consider. But yeah. Anyway, Max.
Yes.
Yours.
Hi. Do you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah. So yes, thanks for the opportunity to share a story. And it wasn't a startup I built. It was just an idea. A few years ago, I was with my girlfriend in the city, and we made some Christmas shopping. And the shopping malls, everything was full, and everywhere were big long queues. And I had one thought: wouldn't it be nice if you can buy something only by taking it and maybe scanning it by yourself, or get tracked, and then you can simply leave the market without going to the cashier to pay and to wait all the time. And I hope you understood the idea, the basic idea. So just going shopping without all that annoying stuff, waiting and all so on. And then I went to my friends and told them this idea. Hey, wouldn't it be cool if we can just go into the supermarket, take something, and just leave by using our smartphone, something to track or something like that? And everybody told me, no, why would you use that? It works nowadays. It works everything pretty well. We don't need it, and so on. And then I didn't thought that much about the idea. A few years later, maybe you heard from that, Amazon Go started and concept right like that, or Saturn in Germany, I think, also started something like that in the concept store. And that was the moment where I realized, so this is an idea I had some years before, and just because of everybody was talking about this, was saying that there is already a solution there, we don't need a new one. And simply because of that thought, I didn't start the idea and didn't start my own business or something like that. And this is where I realized that the hardest thing is maybe to start, but that's also the most important thing. Just simply start, and then let's see what happens.
Sure.
Great one.
And a great observation on this is that most of the time in your life, you don't regret the things that you do so much as the things that you didn't do, right?
Yes,
and,
exactly.
The first step is always the hardest, right? Just to take that first step. But there's one of my favorite authors is a guy called James Clear, and his thing is it's all about the habits, right? And it's about building a system that supports that. So Rome wasn't built in a day, and all my guys will know this one. Rome wasn't built in a day, but they were laying bricks every hour. People always overestimate what's possible in the short term, but they massively underestimate what's possible in the long term with a concerted effort, So in the end, everything's possible, right? The ambition, whatever you want to do, it's all possible as long as you've got this concerted effort and you're taking this direction, right? And you're evolving and so on and moving forward. But it all starts with that first step, for sure.
Yeah. And there's also a quote I'm telling now my friends when because I'm a person, coming up with a new idea almost every day or every week to my friends, and they always say, yeah, there's a similar solution already existing and everything. And what I started to say is, the car was invented by Mercedes, the production was improved by Ford, but I'm still driving a BMW at my favorite car, just to show that there might be different, I hope I don't offend anyone with this example, but only showing that there might be some solutions before it, but they're maybe not the best or not the best suitable for every person, or there might be persons who still need a similar solution but a different one.
Yeah, that's 100% true. And just out of my experience, I've been working with so many people around this topic, specifically on innovation, because a lot, especially when you're in big corporation, and I don't know too much about Germany because I'm so long out of Germany and I'm not working too much with German companies. But I can 100% say that it's a lot not happening because you just think, it's a nice idea and I don't do anything. And that's the biggest mistake often. It's like, get started, get yourself a little bit interested in that idea and figure it out. And then you can find easily ways of making it happen. And not necessarily even you making it happen. It's just getting started and figuring out. Using forums like this, you can chat with us every day, but you don't do it. We're there on LinkedIn. We're there on Facebook or wherever. You can just reach out. Reaching out to someone like us who have done 2 or 3 or 5 or whatever business and fucked up is always a great opportunity to wash your idea, rather than listening to everyone around you who is always saying no. I have had that so much and so often. Everyone who knows you saying, yeah, you shouldn't do that because it's this, and I have had it this, and that's too dangerous for you or whatever. Just stop listening and get together with people who are more yes sayers. That's, for example, why Silicon Valley is so successful, because the whole community is always into this perspective. Hey, how can we take it to the next level? How can we learn from our failures? And I think that's depending which country you are, and you're not used to that way of thinking. So I highly can highly encourage every one of you reaching out to us, reaching out to people like us who have done something or might have a stupid opinion, at least. Not necessarily that we always can help. If you don't know what I'm talking now about, you should listen to Claus' video, what he posted today on LinkedIn. He talked about asking for help, and that's a brilliant one for everyone to look and like as well. I think that's a key point, asking help. It's always a possibility.
Yeah, and I think it's a nice idea right now that I will post all of each other's LinkedIn profiles here in the chat. So please feel free to connect and reach out to us. But Max, thank you for your story. And there is one more question before we wrap up. I think it might be wise to ask it to Claus. And Claus, how do you build higher resilience? It's a question for Mary.
Well, I mean, that's something that I can't give a good answer to in 2 minutes, but the simple version of that is that the way there's an old documentary where Mike Tyson, the former American heavyweight world champion, is training, and you see him, he's hanging from these bars, and he's bare chested, and he's got an impressive upper body, and his coach is throwing basketballs at him. He's just throwing basketballs at his chest and in his face. And when you look at it, you go like, oh, that's gotta hurt. And he's asked like, but this seems like a completely mad way to train. And he says, well, I'm gonna get into a ring. I'm gonna get punched in the face by people who are almost as strong as I am. Notice the almost, because it's Mike Tyson. And I'd rather have tried that beforehand. There's so many studies out there that show that one of the things you learn from trying pain, whether it's emotional pain, physical pain, economical pain, is you learn nuance. If you take kids, and I work with tens of thousands of kids, if you take a kid and punch it in the face, now don't punch the kid in the face, but if you take it and somebody else punches in the face, one of the other kids, preferably, and you ask what is the level of pain you're feeling, Most kids will say on a 1 to 10 scale, 11, 11, I'm dying. But if you ask a kid that's done karate or boxing or live action role play with latex swords, they will say, oh, that was a 4 or a 5 or a 6 or a 6.5, because they're used to it and they are nuanced about it. So if you want to build resilience, go out there and get a lot of small pain. Punch yourself in the face, but only so much as you can take it. Don't do stupid stuff like I do. Just do a little bit of stuff. Go out there and feel how it is to do things that hurt a little bit. And then when you're better, then they hurt a little bit more. You don't climb Mount Everest the first day, but you need to start walking up some hills if you're going to climb Mount Everest. Just don't do it all at once. That's all I ask.
Yeah, but
Great point.
I asked this question to you because you are the only one who can summarize a perfect story in 2 minutes and a perfect answer to that question.
Maybe before we close now, so everyone who is on a phone or on a laptop, doesn't matter, take a screenshot and share it on social media that you attended the Fuck Up Night #1, because you're one of the few people who ever joined the first Fuck Up Night we organized, and I hope you all sign up for the next one and finding them. If you're interested in speaking your story, telling us your story next time, please contact us. Then we bring you up as a panel participant. Connect with us, of course, like Klaus was just typing. And happy if you join us next time. We try to find another group of interesting people to show up and speak, tell us their fuck ups, and try to prototype it going forward. Any last departing words, Klaus and Dan?
I mean, it was a great experience. I really enjoy it. You know, it's fun telling stories, and it's fun seeing, you know, how things resonate with people, you know. And yeah, I mean, the advice is just get out there and do it, right? Just start taking those steps, step out of that comfort zone into that growth zone, you know, try and find ways to maximize the upside and minimize the downside, you know. Another quote from Mike Tyson, just to finish on: everyone's got a plan until they get punched in the face, right? So it's one of my favorite quotes, of course. And yeah, I mean, life is a roller coaster, right? You're never really 100% sure about what you're doing, as an entrepreneur, at least, you know, in life in general, right? But you'll never know what you're capable of unless you start taking those steps. So I can only encourage you all to give it a go and try and find ways to minimize the downside and maximize the upside, right? But get after it.
I'm going to end on a slightly different note, and that is I became an entrepreneur at age 23. And I didn't have mentors to begin with. I have that now. That's one thing I regret bitterly, because they would probably have said, Klaus, don't be such an idiot. Be half the idiot you are, that's fine. But most of all, then I thought that asking people for help, I thought that they were too busy. But what I've learned since then, especially since I've become one of those people who sometimes get asked, is that nobody loves talking about anything but themselves if they can help it. If you write to Ken or to Jan or to Daniel or to anyone and say, hey, what you do is interesting, I'd love to hear how you've done it. Oh, I get an excuse to talk about myself? Bring it on, random stranger. Most of us are like that. Sure, Bill Gates isn't like that, but anyone who's like one level below that and further down will gladly spend their time talking about how they've done a thing if you even just pretend to listen. There's so much wisdom out there. You just need to tap it. And I wish I'd known that way sooner, and I'm glad I know that now.
Good point.
Good.
John, and any departing words from you?
Yes, thank you all. First of all, thank you to our speakers, to Klaus and Dan. Also, thank you to all of our participants. It was great having this first experience with you. It was just an idea. I think I sent a voice message in the middle of the night to Jens. Right now, we did it, and it won't be the last one. That's my promise to you. And as the closing words, thanks to Jens that being such a good partner in this event. And I am looking forward to seeing you, talking to you in the next event. And thank you once more.
Yes, same from my side. We will be posting the video on our YouTube channels. And you will find it on social media if you follow us somewhere. So just follow us, you will find it, and you will as well see what's going on going forward. So with that, thank you very much for everyone joining the call. Have a great evening or morning, depending where you are. And see you next time. Thank you very much. See you,
Thanks,
guys.
See you all later.